Hello and welcome to the Scenario 7 podcast. I am Sam and I'm joined by Josh Bacon and Joe Roberts. How are you two doing?
I'm good, thank you, Sam.
I'm good. Thank you.
Good. That's good to hear. And this week, for our first episode, we are going to be talking about the drivers and constructors standings, doing some predictions where we think each team will finish. We're gonna do it in constructors order from last year. So we're gonna start with Williams and end with Mercedes, where we think we'll finish, and we'll talk about the drivers. So I think let's get started. To be honest, let's start with Williams. Their last year, last place, not great from them. Their car was very slow. They had two different owners having the Williams name before keeping the Williams name, but having a different people in charge. Let's start with Josh. Where do you think they're going to finish in the constructors this year?
So I think they're going to do one better than last year. I think they're going to come 9th out of 10th. I'm generally basing most of my predictions on testing. And so they started off with the first day. They had Roy Nassani, the reserve driver, in the car, which personally I don't think was ideal for the set of 3-day testing that they had, but they did it anyway. So obviously they did it for one reason or another. But then that takes away a precious half a day from both of their current drivers of Latifi and Russell, which even though they haven't got much experience, they've got some experience. It's a new car, so they could have done with that extra half a day. But from testing, the car went nicely with both drivers at the wheel. But I don't think they've got enough to leapfrog forward into the midfield yet. So, I think they'll just do one better and go 9th instead of 10th.
What about you, Joe? Where are you putting them?
I'm putting them 8th. I don't rate the Ferrari power engine. I think it's probably go down for my predictions. I don't think Alfa Romeo have done enough to progress, and I don't think Haas apparently haven't even developed their car. So I don't think any of them will. I think Williams will leapfrog both of them, and going back to testing, I think Williams have made some significant steps in order to make that car to just get not into the midfield, as Josh said, but just be at the end of the midfield.
Sure, I'm going to agree with Josh and put Williams 9th. I think they've definitely improved from last season, but I don't think they're troubling Alfa Romeo. I think they'll be closer to them, and I think it'll be tight, but I think Alfa Romeo will pit them. Moving on to the drivers, they've got the same driver lineup as last year. They've got George Russell, the nation's favourite, and Nicholas Latifi. Where do you think they're going to come in the drivers' standings? We'll go to Josh again.
So I think Latifi, even though he did what he could in the car last year personally, but I'm not sure he'll do much better. I think he'll come 19th, which is one from the bottom. I think I'll go into detail, but I think one of the new guys will pip into a higher spot. We'll go into that later. And then Russell, I think he'll do as much as he can in that car, which he did last year, and I think he'll come 16th.
Sure. What about you, Joe? Where are you putting him?
I'm putting Latifi 18th, and I'm putting Russell 15th, just due to the fact I think Russell will get the most out of that car, and will be able to get some points.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think that Russell's going to come 15th. I've got he's just such a great driver, carrying that Williams, and will carry them to a better season. I think Latifi I've got in 19th though. Will be better than last season. Might get a point, but I'm not really sure that he'll really pull up any trees per se. Let's move on to the next team. We got Haas. They came second to last year, 9th. Ferrari power unit. Günther Steiner, the team principal, who is a controversial figure, but I think I personally love him. How do you think they'll do this year? I don't think it's looking good, is it, Josh?
No, I don't think it's going to look very good. I think they're kind of plumb last in 10th place. They're definitely going to be the team that will struggle the most in round one and throughout the season. They've got a fairly underdeveloped car, as Joe said earlier. They haven't really touched it for this season. They're all focusing on it next season, and they've got 2 rookies at the wheel with Mazepin and Schumacher. So they've got not much experience with the drivers and undeveloped the car. So yeah, they're just going to come last, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's certainly a risky strategy. What do you think, Joe?
I agree they could come last. I honestly think they picked the Mazepin. I think it was the wrong rookie to pick. Not due to the fact of the controversy that happened at the end of the season, but just in general, I thought Callum Ilott was probably a better rookie to pick, even though he didn't have the backing. But I think even though Grosjean and Magnussen are out of the sport, I think they're quite happy they are, because I don't think they would want to be trundling around the back of the grid.
Yeah, sure. I agree. I think it's going to be a miserable year for Haas. That could see, unfortunately, Gunsteiner leave at the end of the year. They're one of the teams that don't have a big budget. They're relying heavily on sponsors, and just from murmurs and how the cars developed, and having two rookies is risky, and I don't see it pulling off. Where do you think Nikita Mazepin and Mick Schumacher will come? Let's go, Joe first. Where do you think they finish in the?
I think Mazepin will finish last. I just don't. He'll probably do some kamikaze stuff, and then throughout the season probably calm down a bit. But I don't think he'll get any points, and I think Schumacher will have to hope other cars in front of him retire, because I don't think they'll be touching the midfield or even the midfield or the points.
Sure. Where do you think he's going to finish, Joe? Mick?
I think he's going to finish 19th.
Oh, Josh, what are your thoughts?
So I agree with Joe with Mazepin finishing plumb last. I think the only reason he's in the sport is because of his dad and the money that like you said earlier, Haas needed to carry on. But then I've changed for Schumacher. I think he'll do 18th, so 1 above Latifi. So I think his experience on F2 and probably his dad's skill will get him into maybe a couple of points positions. But yeah, 18th. Sure,
I'm gonna disagree with you two. I think I've got Mick Schumacher last. I've got him plumb last. I think in F3 and F2, it took him a year to adjust. I think his first year into a new tier of motorsport, he often struggles, and in this car, I think it's going to be more the same. And Mazepin, I mean, we all know he's an idiot. Like, his driving technique is reckless. But at the end of the day, he's fast. Like, he wouldn't be in Formula One without having that ability, even though he often used it in the wrong place and almost cost the lives of half the F2 grid. But yeah, he's talented. The team will struggle, but I can see him nicking maybe a few points just because despite being an idiot, and he'll probably get a quali ban. I can see him getting a few points just because he will send it into every corner. And now moving on to Alfa Romeo, they changed their livery this year with a little switch going from, I think it was red to white to red, a bit subtle but very nice. They're the other team that also rely on sponsors. They have got Kimi Raikkonen and Antonio Giovinazzi as drivers. Josh, where are they finishing constructors?
I think they're finishing the exact same position that they finished last year, which is 8th place. Similarly, I think the testing went well, but again, the midfield's too tight for them to get close to, so they're just on the edge of it in 8th place. But I think they can be pleased with testing. Kimi Raikkonen and Giovinazzi did look good in the car. They look comfortable with not many mistakes, but they still can't quite push on to gain into the midfield yet. So yeah, 8th place.
Joe, what do you think?
I put Alfa Romeo 9th. It's going to be tight between Williams and Alfa Romeo, but it's the power unit. I think it's going to be the struggle for Alfa Romeo.
Sure. I agree it's going to be tight, but I do have Alfa Romeo in 8th, same as last year. I don't think they've really developed much. I think it's going to be relatively more of the same, but I think they'll just about pip Williams. Where do you have the drivers, Josh?
I've got Giovinazzi in 17th, and then Raikkonen just one ahead of Russell with his experience in 15th.
Sure. Joe?
I've got Giovinazzi in 17th and Kimi Räikkönen in 16th. I think Kimi Räikkönen's slowly getting on it a bit. I don't think he'd be in the sport next season. I think another Ferrari Academy driver will come in. Maybe Robert Schwartzman, I think. Yeah, from F2. So yeah, I don't think there'll be any. I don't think there'll be any moves into like 15th.
Fair enough. I've got, I agree. I've got Raikkonen 16th and Giovinazzi 17th. I think both of them will get a few points, but as you said, Kimi's experience will probably see him into 16th. Moving on now to AlphaTauri. An interesting one after, I'd say, a very good testing, especially for one of the drivers. But Josh, where do you think they're going to fare overall?
Same again. They're going to stay 7th as last season. Yeah, I'm very boring. But yeah, you'll see why when I explain later on. But yeah, they do look like they've come along nicely, but so do other teams. And then obviously they've got a new rookie with Yuki Tsunoda, who he found his feet very well in that test. He did look quick, although on day 3 he was on the fastest, softest tyres, C5, and then probably had low fuel mode, which is why he was so fast. But still, he looked like he could control the car well. Only one spin throughout the weekend, which is good for a rookie. And then Gasly's just doing what he always does, performing consistently and showing what he can do in that car. So they do have. I think they've got a stronger car than last season, but I don't think they're going to change position because of everyone else above them. So yeah, 7th place.
Yeah. Sure, Joe.
I put AlphaTauri 5th.
Wow, that is a big statement.
This might go on to, probably you could tell, for the Honda side. I think the Honda power unit, I think, is getting closer and closer to Mercedes, and I think they will jump a number of teams, I think, that don't have that power, or because their car looks very stable and looks very quick through the corners. Even though it was the C5 tyre, I still think they have potential jumping a couple of teams above them.
Wow, I'm gonna be boring with Josh. I've got AlphaTauri in 7th, and again, it's nothing to do with the fact that they're not going to do well. It's just that I think the teams above them have a lot of quality. They're looking very fast, and it could be an interesting one with a few more surprise finishes. I don't think we'll see a first for Gasly like last year, but I think he'll push up the grid. And talking about Gasly, Gasly and Tsunoda, 2 drivers. Josh, where are they coming?
So you're probably going to think it's boring again. But I was debating whether to put Tsunoda above Gasly, but I didn't in the end because of Gasly's experience. So I've got Tsunoda in 14th and Gasly in 13th.
Sure. Joe?
I put Tsunoda in 14th, just due to the fact he's a rookie. But I do think there's a chance he might move up, depending on how the other drivers do. And then I put Gasly 10th, just because I think he'll be quicker than the Ferraris and the Alpines as well. The testing didn't go very well for those 2 teams, so I think they'll jump those drivers.
So that's 14th and 10th. So I've also got Gasly. I've got Gasly in 10th and Tsunoda in 14th, and I still think they'll come 7th. Gasly, incredible year last time out, like getting a race win, proved his critics wrong, and I think he's the one who'll drag AlphaTauri into a potential midfield battle. I think it will be close. They'll definitely be closer to the teams above them than last year. And Tsunoda, he looked great in testing, really promising, but I think he'll be bottom of the midfield drivers just because he's a rookie, lack of experience. However, I think he definitely has a good future, but I'm not sure if he'll necessarily meet that high ceiling this season. Moving on to the shocker last year, Ferrari in 6th. I mean, that we can't. I can't believe that happened last year. That was a big surprise. Josh, constructors, where do you think they're coming? New driver, of course.
Yeah, new driver of Carlos Sainz. So I think they're going to go up by 1, and they're going to go to 5th. Jay's probably like, what are you on about? But yeah, I think they're going to go up to 5th. They obviously needed a big winter after the disappointing season they had last season. So yeah, I think it's still difficult to predict how they're going to do, because that car, I don't know how well they developed it, and they didn't look that great in testing. They had moments, but they didn't have the best of tests. It's difficult to know. But they've got a little bit of innovation in their new car. They've got a fin on the edge of their diffuser, which might help them out a little bit with a bit of extra pace. But yeah, I think they're going to come 5th, ahead of 1 place ahead of last season.
What do you think, Joe? I know you're not a fan of the Ferrari power unit.
I think they'll come 6th. I honestly don't. As in, I don't think there's looks like there's still too much drag on that car, even though they have improved it. But other teams, I think, around them have improved a lot more, and you obviously got other teams like Aston Martin have moved away from the pink Mercedes, and you got the McLaren going to Mercedes engine power. Then you've got the Alpha Tauri has better Honda power. So those cars look a lot better than the Ferrari. So I just think they'll stay the same.
I'm gonna go one better than Josh. I'm putting Ferrari in 4th. It's a big shout. And I know Joe's gonna heavily disagree, but I've got Ferrari in 4th. I think their new power unit, they'll have full power this year. They're not gonna have to tune it down because they were under investigation. I think that Ferrari, with their driver lineup as well, they've got some great drivers, as I'll talk about in a sec. But yeah, I have Ferrari, controversially maybe, in 4th. Josh, where are you going to put Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc?
Firstly, I'm not sure if I agree with the full power unit, but all right, I can see 4th place. But I think I put them in 5th because I think the addition of Sainz, because I think Vettel just didn't enjoy his last season with Ferrari, so he looked miserable the whole time, which is why he didn't really perform in that car. So I think the addition of Sainz is why they're going to go up 1 more, and I think Sainz is going to finish 11th. But I think once again, Charles Leclerc is going to push that car to its absolute limit. He has no fear in that car, and I think he's going to come 6th. So yeah, 6th and 11th.
Sure, Joe.
I think it'll be a shocker Ferrari this season. I actually don't think that any of the Ferrari drivers will do well. I think they'll be 13th and 14th. Sainz will be 13th. Leclerc will be 14th.
Oh, why do you have Sainz, the new boy at Ferrari, in front of Leclerc?
I don't know. It's no. 13th Sainz and then 12th Leclerc.
Oh right, okay.
Yeah, I just don't think Sainz will get used to that car quick enough to actually get the max amount of points to be able to leapfrog Leclerc and also the drivers above. And I don't think Leclerc I remember him saying if it's a good car to drive and it's slow, he wants a fast car, but the car is not going to be fast if the power unit's terrible. The aero doesn't look particularly good compared to the other teams. So I don't think I think it'll be a very shocking season for Ferrari.
Sure. Well, I've got I agree with one thing Josh said. I've got Charles Leclerc in 6th. I think Leclerc entering his 3rd year with Ferrari, brilliant driver, and I think I'm predicting significant improvement from the Ferrari, which I know Joe definitely disagrees with. And then I've got Carlos Sainz a lot. I've got him higher in 8th. I've got him. I think it's going to take him a bit of time to adjust, but which he does pretty much in every season, even at McLaren. But when he gets going, I think he will help Leclerc push Ferrari up the constructors. Moving on to new team now, take over from Renault. That's Alpine or Alpine, however you want to say it. They've got interesting driver lineup. I can't believe Fernando Alonso's back. That was the last thing I expected. I thought they'd go for a rookie, but a lot of experience with Alonso coming back, and they got Esteban Ocon keeping a spot. Josh, where are they going to finish in constructors?
Alpine, I think the change in name and the new driver lineup, I think they're going to do one better than last season. I think they're going to come fourth. So yeah, obviously Fernando's back at the wheel, and it looked like he never left during testing. He went straight in that car and just floated around the track like he never even left the Formula One. And then he made no mistakes, and he's a two-time world champion. So I think he'll put that car where it shouldn't really be, if you get what I mean. But then they've come up with a slightly strange concept with their car this year. They've got a very high upper engine cover, and it's trying to thin it out towards the bottom, which is a fairly unique design. No one knows if it's going to be faster or not, but if it does, then that's the reason I put them a higher place than last year.
Joe?
I put them 7th. I don't think the Alpine didn't look particularly quick. The driver standings I kind of got a bit wrong, but I think definitely I don't think they're going to do very well this season, just due to the fact I think the Ferrari again is going to be better than the last season, and I think it will leapfrog Alpine, just due to the fact I think Alpine will take a step back in terms of power unit and also the aero around it, because I don't think the unique design of that engine cover will work.
Sure. I've got Alpine in. I've got them in 6th. I think they'll do all right. One worse than last year. I think that's just because teams in front have improved. I don't think they'll necessarily take a step backwards, but I think they'll kind of stay the same while teams around them will kind of get better. Yeah, I don't think they'll necessarily do much this year, but they're going to look good doing whatever they are going to do. So that's what matters. That livery is superb. Josh, drivers' standings: Fernando Alonso and Ocon. Where are they?
Drivers, I've got Ocon in 10th and Alonso in 8th, so just ahead of him because of his experience, and he's a two-time world champion. So yeah.
Sure, Joe.
Yeah, obviously my constructors probably doesn't really add up. I put Ocon in 11th and Alonso in 9th. Just again to Josh, Alonso's got all that experience, and he had the maximum out of the McLaren car when it wasn't very good, and I think got a decent amount of points in that one. So I think he will get 8th.
Sure, I've got Alonso in 12th and Ocon in 13th. I think they're both going to be in front. I think they'll be around the same pace. I think Alonso's experience will push him ahead of Ocon, but I don't think it's going to be a very impressive season for either of them, and I expect them to be pretty meh. Right, moving on to the next team, another new team taking over from the pink Mercedes Racing Point and becoming Aston Martin. Josh, where are Aston Martin going to come this year?
Aston Martin are not going to do as well as they did last season. I think they're going to finish 6th. Probably Aston Martin are probably the team that had the most disappointing tests, which doesn't mean they're going to be the most disappointing team. But yeah, I think they're not going to do as well as last year. So Sebastian Vettel in particular struggled for some mileage in testing, which isn't good when you're moving to a new team for the first time, especially after being, I think it was 6 years at Ferrari, maybe less or more. So trying to move from Ferrari to a new car and having not much experience in it isn't good. So he had a gearbox issue on day 2 and then another issue on day 3. But one positive from testing was that Lance Stroll did show some pace, but I don't think it's enough to do the same as last year or set the same standard. So yeah, I think they're going to come 6th.
Sure, Joe.
I put them in 4th. I think they got the decent enough pace behind them to be able to sustain attacks from the likes of Alfa, Tauri, and Ferrari. So I think they'll be fine.
Sure, I've got them one between you two. I've got them in 5th. I think that I think that they'll be decent. I think that they will. I'm not sure whether they'll improve. I think there'll be slight improvements from last year, but again, just I think there's going to be a lot of pace this year, all around them. I think. Well, I'll move on to drivers in a bit, but I definitely think that if they have good reliability and they'll have good pace, so I think they'll do all right and become fifth. Josh, where are you going to put your drivers? Vettel and Stroll.
Well, I've got Vettel in ninth, and I think Stroll will do one better than that, and I think he'll go eighth just because he's got more experience in that car than Vettel. So yeah, one above.
Joe?
I think Vettel will be sixth. I think he likes rear stability cars. Listen, we've got like the racing, the Red Bull from quite a long time. He liked that rear stability, and the Ferrari, it was always on his edge. So I think he will have that at Aston Martin, and also again, I think they will cater to him rather than get him kind of pushed out the door like he was last season. I think Stroll, again, he's got talent, but I think he just needs to mature a bit on like pace and race pace and qualifying. So I think he will finish eighth in the drivers' standings.
Sure. I've got Lance Stroll in ninth, and I've got Sebi Vettel in 11th. So I've got Stroll ninth. I mean, he's a very talented driver. As much as people say he's a money driver, pretty much everyone is in this sport. And he's improved. I mean, he still has mistakes to cut out. He still needs to be a bit more consistent, but he's got a lot of pace, and he does have a lot of ability. Sebastian Vettel, I think he'll improve from last year. A new start for him will be important, and I think this one could change because I'm not really sure what to expect with Vettel, but his insight will be important for Aston Martin. But I think he'll only improve his position from last year by a few places. I've got Vettel in 11th. Now we're getting on to the top three. We're moving on to McLaren. Josh, I know they're your favourite team. You're wearing their merchandise. Where are they going to come?
McLaren. So yeah, obviously just said favourite team, favourite driver lineup personally. So don't really talk. But yeah, I think they're gonna stay where they were last season and have another good season and finish third. But I think they're going to be closer than they were last year to the top two teams. So they had a really good test, and you can tell because they were happy with it, which is an encouraging sign. Daniel Ricciardo looked like he should be in that car from the start. He just went straight into it with no problems. Both drivers had very few mistakes, and the new engine just looks good in the car. It just feels like it's going to push them further. So yeah, I'm going to put my neck on the line and think they're going to be the best of the rest, but be closer to the top two.
Sure. Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, again, they're my favourite team, and I do agree with Josh that they will finish P3. I think, the development of the car will close up the gap. I think the gap at the moment isn't that particularly big. I think they will get potentially a couple of podiums, but it will depend on Perez and the Mercedes and the Red Bulls making a mistake, which it could be a very because of testing, it could be a very close title fight. So if they slip up, McLaren can easily just get a couple of podiums here and there from this season. But again, I think they're focusing on the development of the car as well for next season in order to be the top dog, I'm going to call it.
Sure. I agree with both of you. I don't really think it's sticking neck on the line. I think McLaren are. I think they're quite likely to come third. Really, they've improved so much over the last few years. It's quite incredible. Their incline. I think their Mercedes power unit is gonna be big for them. It's gonna really take them to a new level. And while they're staying third, yeah, I also agree that they'll be closer to the top two, who we'll talk about in a sec. and also the driver lineup is very impressive. Talk about the driver lineup, Josh, Ricciardo, Norris. Where are they coming?
Well, as you two know, my favourite driver is Lando Norris, so obviously I've had to put him higher than Daniel
No,
Ricciardo.
surely not.
So I've put Daniel Ricciardo in 7th, and then I put Lando Norris in 5th, the best other driver apart from the top 2 teams. So yeah, that's where I put them.
Joe?
I think Daniel Ricciardo will be 5th and Norris will be 7th, just due to the fact I think Vettel, if he has a decent car, can be able to split those McLarens. Norris, he might have a couple of issues. Just yeah, but it depends on how Perez does, as in it's always been the curse with the second car of the Red Bull. So if he doesn't perform, I think Ricciardo could get P4, but that's just it's a big ask for Ricciardo, because again that Red Bull does look very, very quick.
Yeah, sure. I've got Lando Norris in 7th. As I think Mercedes powered car, so that he'll have the pace, and he definitely has the ability. Like he is a fantastic driver. And 7th, you got to remember, is still an improvement on last year. So and I think he'll still have a great year, but I see him coming 7th. And then Ricciardo, I've got in 4th. Now that is a big ask, but I think he will. I think he'll break the top 2 kind of like Perez did last year. Albon was rubbish last year, but yeah, I think he'll come 4th. He'll start pulling McLaren away from a midfield battle and pull them towards a top 3 battle. And I think Ricciardo in a good car is a match made in heaven. I mean, Ricciardo is just such a exceptional driver, and if he has reliability and he has the pace, he will. I think he'll get a few. I think he could get at least 1 win, definitely a few podiums. But yeah, I see Ricciardo 4th and Norris 7th. Moving on to Red Bull, they're still Christian Horner. Let go of Albon, which I think still causes some people are happy with it. Some people really like Albon. But Josh, where are they going to come in the constructors? I think this is predictable. The top 2, isn't it?
You think it's predictable?
Really?
I think Red Bull are going to win it this year. I think Red Bull are going to get in front of Mercedes. I know you're probably laughing at me, and I probably know your reasons, which I will go into when we talk about Mercedes. But it's Red Bull at the moment, so I think they've done a great job coming in from last season to this season. The car looks so much more stable at this time of the year than it did in the previous seasons at testing, especially in Barcelona last year. The rear end just looks a whole lot better. There's no more of these odd spins that we used to see all the time in testing and then in the races. So I think they're bringing in the car that they developed from Abu Dhabi, where Verstappen won, which is one of Mercedes' probably best tracks, and he beat them comfortably. So yeah, I think they'll be a force to reckon with, and they'll test Mercedes this year, and they'll beat them just to the top.
Wow, but that is a big statement, Joe. Where have you got Red Bull?
I've got them 2nd. I do agree that the car does look more stable. It does beg the question, why didn't they do it in the first place? With like Albon and Gasly, because they like stable cars. They don't. Max is always like those edgy cars, right on the nose. But yeah, it does beg the question how Perez is going to cope as well, because Perez does again like a stable car, is like Sauber, and then you got like the Racing Point, obviously the Force India as well. That was also a very stable car, and he also is very good on his tires. So yeah, they will push Mercedes all the way, but I think it'll just be Max that'll do that. I don't think Perez will.
Sure. I've got Red Bull also 2nd. I think they'll be closer to Mercedes. Red Bull definitely had a great testing. Not that I think you can take much from testing, but they definitely did well. I think there are a few rule changes for this year which could definitely favour Red Bull, with the testing affecting like ride height. I think definitely favours Red Bull with Mercedes' low rake probably being worse off than Red Bull's high rake, and it. I think they'll be closer. I don't think, but I still think Mercedes will do it. I think that Mercedes will just have a bit too much pace, but Red Bull definitely closed the gap. And for 2022, well, we'll see what happens. But yeah, for now, I've got Red Bull in second. Now, Josh, where are Max Verstappen and the GOAT, Sergio Perez or Checo Perez, going to come?
I'll start off with your favourite driver, Sergio Perez. So, like Joe said, he loves a stable car, and I think now that this car is more stable, and with his ability, which we all know is ridiculous, I think he will split the two Mercedes drivers, and I think he will finish third. And then I think Max Verstappen will be the world champion for the first time in his career, and I think he'll come top spot.
Wow. Joe?
Yeah, I'll start with Perez. I think he's going to finish fourth. But the interesting one is the Max. I think part of me thinks Lewis will do it just due to the fact of his ability. But he didn't look particularly happy with the car, which, again, you can't really go from testing. I think this is the one thing that's quite annoying about it. You can't actually get reliable data from it. But I do agree with Josh. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be like a Rosberg-Hamilton situation where it'd be like 2 points go to the last race of the season. But I think Max will win it. That's based off testing. I think if it's like how Mercedes will bounce back, I think Hamilton will do it. But I think if you base it off testing, I think Max will win.
Sure. So yeah, I think Max will come second, and because I'm not biased like Josh for Norris, I have Checo Perez in fifth. I think that talking about Max first, he's one of the best drivers on the grid. He's got ability coming out of his ears. I mean, he is such a great driver, and he will definitely get the best of the out of the Red Bull, and it will be closer. But I still think he'll do better than Bottas. But I don't think that that's kind of ruined my pick. But yeah, not really a surprise where I've got drivers now. But yeah, I think he'll split the Mercedes, but I think and he'll come second. And then with Checo, he's finally got a shot at a big team. I mean, this has been a long time coming. He's deserved it. And I don't think necessarily he'll pull up any trees, as in, like, I don't think he'll really, like, push Hamilton or Verstappen. I don't think he'll push his teammate too much, but I think he'll be stable. I think he'll be consistent. He'll have that more consistency than Albon or Gasly, who like one race come fourth and next race come like 12th. I think he'll be consistent, get a few podiums, possibly get another win. Really hope so. But yeah, I see him becoming below Ricciardo and coming fifth, which I think if he gets a top five, I think he's had a good season. So I've got Perez fifth. Moving on to Mercedes. We know where you've got them now, Josh. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one this year. Why do you have Mercedes first? Because we know where you have them.
I'm in second. They're not first. Yeah, Mercedes are in second. I know Joe said it's hard to base things off tests, but that's the data that we've got, and that's the stuff on the new car. And I thought it'd be different to you two boring people just going Mercedes to win the whole time. So yeah, they had a tough test. Bottas had a gearbox issue on day one, which meant he just didn't really leave the garage in the morning. And then, like Joe said earlier, Lewis never looked comfortable in that car. He was constantly oversteering through the sandstorm on day one, and then having a spin at turn 13 on day two, as well as having another spin just before trying to start a fastest lap on the C5 softest tyre at the end of day three. So they had a dreadful test, but the question is, are they sandbagging like they always do? Are they hiding the power, hiding the true pace so that people think they're not as good as they used to be? So yeah, who knows? But yeah, I think they're going to come second.
Joe?
Yeah, again, I think it's if it's business as usual for Mercedes, I think Lewis Hamilton win it. So that's why I said Max might, if you just base it off testing. I think Bottas will be the interesting one. I think he has to either win it or be closer to Hamilton. If he doesn't, I think Russell will be wanting that seat. I think he also got Ocon. I don't know. I think he might be part of the Renault or no, the Alpine Academy now. But yeah, I think that Bottas will finish third, and Hamilton, depending on the pace of that Mercedes, I think he will either win it or come second.
Yeah, I think Mercedes will come first. I think they actually did have issues in testing. I think they definitely had issues, but I think they were also sandbagging. It'll be closer between them and Red Bull, but I still think they'll dominate the grid. I don't like to read too much into testing. I just think, you can't really take much from it. But yeah, I think, it'll be close, but Mercedes, I think, will dominate. Not as much, but I think they'll still win. Josh, you'd have your drivers. Where are they?
So as always, Lewis Hamilton, he's world class. So he's going to be a close second to Max. So I think he'll be behind Max, but I think the Red Bull this year is just gone up a bit. So yeah, Max will push him and just edge it. It'll be close. It'll probably go down to the last race, like Joe said, but I think he'll come second. And then Bottas, I think he'll have another poor season on the Mercedes stand of the car. So I think he'll finish fourth below Perez. And like Joe said, if he finishes outside the top two, I think Russell will be in next season. So yeah, I think he'll finish fourth with Russell coming in the year after.
Sure. Joe, you kind of explained yours, but do you want to go over them again? So why you have your drivers there?
I think it's just basically saying the same thing as Josh. I think there's a lot of drivers, I think, in that Mercedes Academy that also you got Max that's I think potentially his contract's ending this season. So there's a lot of drivers out there that they can get if Bottas doesn't perform or Lewis Hamilton decides to retire. So they've got a lot of options, and I think that options creates the pressure for Bottas to perform. But yeah, I think Bottas will finish third, and I think Lewis Hamilton finish second if you base that off testing.
Yeah, sure. So I've got Hamilton first, Bottas third. I mean, it's Lewis Hamilton. He's just incredible. He'll win again, but it'll be closer. And I think Hamilton could get a bit twitchy, but Valtteri Bottas in third. He needs a big year. He really does, and it'll probably be his last year at Mercedes. I don't think he'll be a 1-2. I think he'll come third. I guess that wraps up our discussion. Thank you for watching. Make sure you let us know where do you think people finish? What's your controversial pick for constructors or for the leaderboard? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for listening if you're on any audio platform. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, bye.